contact with an infected person when the virus is actually actively shedding. So it's a little bit of a different distinction, but it definitely can be transmitted during sexual contact as well. Now, what's important about this virus that is rather sad and unfortunate is that it lays dormant in the nerves, and in particular the dorsal root ganglia, dorsal root sacral ganglia. Now, what can happen is that this virus can then be reactivated because of some triggers. So periodically you can get a recurrence of herpes, and here are some of the reasons. A lot of sunlight can trigger this, a febrile illness, stress, physical and emotional stress, and definitely immunosuppression. So for example, someone who has HIV and has a weakened immune system. And that's why herpes is one of those things that just keeps reoccurring, because it keeps the recurrent herpetic eruptions are precipitated by all those things that I just mentioned. So there's 3 types of herpes infections that I wanted to touch on to give you an illustration of what this is like in terms of signs and symptoms presentation. So the first one is pretty much a lesion, mucocutaneous lesion, and these lesions are commonly occurring on the mouth or the lips or the conjunctiva or the cornea. And what can happen is you have these characteristic vesicles that are in clusters. They kind of look like that, different sizes, like that. And then the base, they're sitting on this erythematous red base. So they describe that as an erythematous base. And I encourage you to look up pictures of the herpes mucocutaneous lesions to get an idea of what this looks like. The second type of herpes presentation is something that happens known as herpes labialis. And there really isn't that much of a difference. It's just technically just given a different name. It's kind of resembles an ulcer or a cold sore, and normally appears on the lip, the area of the lip that a woman would apply lipstick on, known as the vermilion border. Vermilion border. That's the area that this cold sore will appear on. And the last one, which I don't have enough space for, is the most common one, is genital herpes. And that is by far the most common, and in fact it's the most common ulcerative sexually transmitted disease in the world. And basically what you have is on either the penis in a man or the labia in a female, you have the very similar type of vesicles, which is the cluster of small vesicles on a erythematous base. So very similar to the previous description, but this time it's appearing in the genital area. So very important. So how do you diagnose it? The diagnosis really is sort of just characteristic lesions can kind of tell you that, look, this is herpes, but there is definitely some tests. There's a PCR testing, which is by far the most sensitive. It has 95% sensitivity, and this is definitely the best one. It's a definitive diagnosis, polymerase chain reaction just in case you're not sure what that is. There's another test that's done that is not as sensitive, but it's very commonly tested or mentioned on